yourself first.
I know everybody knows.
Stay tuned.
Stay protected.
Stay focused.
Stay connected.
There's a lot of different types of HELOC products that are now on the market, some of them geared towards velocity banking, and that's really good news.
This is probably the largest asset you will ever have in your life.
Right.
Here's some direction and some instruction on how to leverage this vehicle so that you can help yourself, help your family, accomplish your goals. We're not educated that way.
We use a strategy to pay off our home in 4 years.
Validation of your retirement account says what you thought was a retirement account is no longer one.
When I tell you, you're going to be shocked to learn. If you didn't come from a wealthy family,
You can make sure a wealthy family comes from you. So it starts with pay yourself first, today,
Yeah, starting today.
right now. Put your money in somewhere secure. It's about the ability to not lose. I will take base hits all day long versus winning and losing. Somewhere secure, compound your money, and then you leverage OPM, other people's money, to exponentially grow it. That's how you generate wealth.
So whether you're joining us to crush debt or build wealth, time is the most valuable asset.
and we're so grateful that you're spending your time here with us.
Keep going.
Good evening. If you have just recently got a HELOC, if you already have a HELOC, if this is something that you're using for your debt payoff strategy to pay off your mortgage quickly, maybe it's a first position HELOC, maybe it's a second position HELOC and you're using the chunking method. Either way it goes, it doesn't matter. If your primary goal is to pay your home off, we're going to tell you why we would never pay our home off and what to do with that leverage instead.
Right. I mean, here's the thing. With everything else going on in this country, the ability to be able to pivot, make adjustments where necessary, be cash flow, I'll call it not just cash flow positive, but being able to be able to put that cash flow in a position to be able to work for you when you need it. The ability to pivot, be able to pivot on a dime, regardless of what's happening, regardless of where the market is or isn't. Are you in a position to where you can leverage those things that you have access to? So what we want to do today is kind of continue breaking down an example that we've already kind of started. We were going over last week, but we want to take this, I'll call it a step further. Go a little bit deeper into what does leverage look like? How can we use it? What can you use it for? What are those actions you can take? And how can you put yourself in a position to be able to access your cash value when you need it?
Yeah, and I think let me retract, because when I say we would never pay off our home, that's actually not true, because we paid off our home
Several times.
several times. Yeah. It's that we would never pay off the HELOC. We will continue to use this leverage and use it to build wealth. Whereas a lot of people, the most popular financial channels and advice that's on YouTube right now is about becoming debt free. And you can be we say it all the time, you can be debt free and broke at the same time. Building wealth, if you are not using the leverage that's available to you to build wealth, to increase your assets, to increase your cash flow, to increase your passive income, so that you can break away from trading your time for money, so that you can have financial stability, right? Financial freedom doesn't come from being debt free. That is not the same thing. And that's often confused out here. What we're hoping is that you will try to start to rewire your brain and how you think about leverage, where I can identify now leverage within your own financial profile and how you can use it. So if you have a HELOC and you're wondering, what are the next steps? What should I do with it? If you haven't had this in your pocket yet, if you haven't had these strategies in your pocket, then grab your notebook, because we're diving in.
Absolutely.
All right, you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, here we go. And the new game is Donnell has to race to the vibe board before this transition's over.
We'll see if it happens.
Wish him luck.
1, 2, 3.
The goal should be, where can I achieve exponential growth? Exponential growth.
let's just get into it. Let's just get
He made it.
Minutes to spend. I mean, I could have gone to the bathroom and came back.
No, you did good. Look at you.
All right. So yeah, today what we wanted to do is peel back the layers a little bit on an example that we've used. And here's really the reason why. I get this question all the time around, hey, I've got this HELOC and I'm concerned about, one, the size of it and what it's going to take for me to be able to pay it off and what happens 10 years from now. And I get a lot of questions around how to use it. And here's the piece. It's leverage. And once you understand how to use leverage, you realize that leverage is everywhere. And your objective should be, how can I put this leverage to work so that I can invest in what I want, so that I can actually create freedom? And sweetheart, you said it very, very well. You can be debt free and broke at the same time. And so the objective isn't about being debt free, it's about leverage. It's about understanding how to use that leverage. And so, um, again, I think this is a play on the same thought process, and that is debt free does not equal financial stability, and that ultimately should be the goal. And if you don't understand where your leverage is located, that's step one. And as we say all the time, leverage is located everywhere. It could be your 40-hour-a-week job, meaning, are you doing this 40-hour-a-week job with an expectation that they are somehow going to take care of you at the end of those 30 years or 35 years or however long it is you're working? The truth is they're not. So how can you leverage them so that you can put yourself in a better position so that you're not as dependent? If you've got a side hustle, yeah, maybe that side hustle isn't doing everything that you wanted to do, but how can you leverage and use that side hustle to go after business credit, to put yourself in a better position so that you can make more use of the position that you're in, so that you can take action take action towards some of these things that we kind of talk about often. So whether it's the job that you work for or previous employer's retirement account that maybe you can leverage to pay off debt to free up so that you can free up cash flow so that you can go identify more leverage. Again, we talk about properly structured cash value life insurance products all the time. So if you don't understand where your leverage is located, it's going to be fairly difficult to actually focus on or generate the wealth that you want. And you kind of highlighted the finfluencers and a lot of the things that's been or are being said as it relates to debt. And again, I know this is a little bit small. I'll zoom in on most of it, but debt free is the only path to financial freedom. Have you heard that before? Because it seems like it's a consistent thing that I'm seeing. Or maybe get rid of all your debt and you'll be financially free. Is that true? Or what they actually saying, when you have no options, you can't blame me for it. I told you to get debt. I told you to become debt free. Does that sound familiar to anybody who focuses on making sure you don't have any debt? And they berate you about it as well. They berate you to the point where, hey, if you do end up with debt, don't say I didn't tell you so, right?
Yeah,
That's their problem.
or if you end up with no wealth, you're
Right.
broke at the end of it. And they say, hey, but at least you're debt free.
Right. And you can't build wealth until you're debt free. Meaning, hey, give up all of your compound cycles today. Focus on becoming debt free so that by the time you're 58, 59, 62, then you can focus on generating wealth. That math does not math, because the earlier you can start, the earlier you can finish. You've got take advantage of the compound cycles you have today, because you're not going to get them back. Meaning, once a compound cycle is gone, it's gone. And what's a compound cycle? A compound cycle is the amount of time it takes for your money to double just one time. So if you're in your 40s, how many true compound cycles do you have left to be able to put your W-2 income in place so that it can work for you? If you're 25 years of age, you've got a fair number of compound cycles. How are you taking advantage of those compound cycles that you have right now and to put yourself in a position so that your money can make its own money? So it's taking advantage of these opportunities to be able to invest where you need to. And the piece that I think one of the pieces that piss me off is you will hear people tell you, hey, don't worry about leverage. Leverage is not your friend. Leverage is the devil. Leverage will put you in a position to where you will have to end up working for the rest of your life, while those are the same individuals that are using your leverage to take advantage of you. These are the same people that are saying, hey, don't take advantage of that leverage you have in your home, while the banks and those other financial institutions are using that leverage against you. So why can't you do the same? Why can't you become them?
Well, and to be fair, they're not actually saying leverage, they're saying debt,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And
That's a great, I think you bring up a great point, because I speak in terms of leverage, but you're right. It's using debt so that you can take advantage of it. And you're right. When you hear that word debt, you automatically think something negative, right?
right. And a lot of people believe that they're doing a good thing. It's just that that the part where you think you've won, it's the, huh?
Yeah. I can't say
Well, I'm just gonna. I'll be quick. You think that you've won.
Right.
That's the point.
Right.
And you really haven't won anything, because you don't realize what it is you actually won until the end. That's the part where what we're trying to educate. Just in I don't want to say this wrong, because I don't think that there are some people, I think, who are just out here. Maybe they just don't care as much. They're not attached to your outcome. right? But I think that's the point, is you think that you're going to win, but if you're not doing the math all the way through and you do not understand how does this, when your income stops, how does being debt free, how does your current goal impact you?
Well, and I like to push it as you have to meet people where they are. Because just because you have access to leverage doesn't necessarily mean you should be putting it into practice. How you use that leverage and what you have in cash flow truly should dictate how far you go or what you should or shouldn't use. So it's understanding, it's meeting people where they are and helping them understand what's available to them. But let's be realistic. Not everyone should be running out here and getting a first position HELOC on their home or getting a second position HELOC and putting themselves further into debt. If they don't understand the strategy that they're using, they don't have the cash flow available to them to be able to pay it off. So I think it's meeting people where they are, but just making sure we're clear as to what the opportunities are, and not put people in the position of where they believe that the leverage that they have is somehow bad. And as it relates to last week, again, we kind of flew through this example last week where it was Laura, 55 years of age, and her objective was to take advantage of the home that she was in, hopefully pay it off within 4 years, because her objective is to work another, I think it was 10 years, 55 to 65, work another 10 years. She wanted to have her home paid off, and once her home was paid off, wanted to focus on putting some of that money to work to be able to work for her. And we were able to accomplish her goal, which was pay the home off in 4 years, or 5, I think is what it ended up being. But we took another twist, as we always do, and actually put that money to work. So what we wanted to do was go a little step further, meaning what are some of the other things she could have done as it relates to having that leverage in the form of a first position home equity line of credit, because that's what ended up happening. She replaced her mortgage with a first position home equity line of credit, and now she has this decent amount of leverage, decent amount of cash flow to be able to put to work.
But to be fair, she also did not identify her debt as leverage. She had the same thought that she wanted to get out from underneath this mortgage and that
Get rid of it.
it would feel so much better, right, if she could just be done with it.
And I think so, and you bring up a great point. It's about the tool. It's about using it as a tool to help you get to where you want to go, not as a burden that you have to carry, right?
Right.
And so to that point, what is leverage? And this is a definition that we've broken out before, I think, but kind of breaking it down a little bit differently. Leverage is really about control. It's the ability to be able to pivot when you need to. And as it relates to a business, borrowed money, leveraging as a business, leveraging debt to be able to put yourself in a position to where you can create a spread. Mortgage, lending against equity in assets. And again, we hear about this often, but I just don't know that we kind of do enough or do it enough justice to kind of break down the details as to the how. And I forgot all about Twitter and how Twitter was purchased, but you're absolutely correct. Leverage is where you can leverage another company's assets to be able to pay for the purchase of a business like Twitter, without having to put any of your money forward to be able to do so. And this happens all over the place, not just Twitter, but Joanne's Fabric, Peter Thiel did it. Like there's so many people who understand how and where leverage can be used and how to use it.
Well, and for anybody who's interested, this is exactly why Joanne's Fabrics is going out of business now, because of the debt, right? That was associated with that buyout. So it's a tool if it's put into action. If
Right.
it just sits there and collects dust or collects interest, then it becomes a problem and it does become a burden. But inaction is the key.
And which are you? Are you a thermostat or are you a thermometer? Are you one who can simply read the room, or are you one that can actually adjust to the environment to fit whatever's required? Meaning, if you understand how to use leverage, you're putting yourself in a position to where you can pivot. Regardless of what's happening with the market, regardless of where inflation is or isn't, are you in a position to be able to adjust? Are you simply in a position to be able to pivot when you need to pivot based off what's happening in the environment that we're in? And that's the key, is understanding where your leverage is located so that you can just adjust. Because there's things that you cannot control. None of us can control what does or doesn't happen in the market. None of us can control what this administration will or won't do. but at least we can put ourselves in a position to where we can adjust to the times. We can access our leverage where it can be accessed so that we can ultimately pivot. And there are many types of leverage. This is not an exhausted list, meaning this isn't everything. This isn't all there is to know as it relates to leverage and what's available. But there are some pretty awesome pieces here that you should be able to understand how to use or leverage if you can. And that is your mortgage, a first position or second position home equity line of credit. Our savings is a form of leverage. Understanding how to use your business lines of credit, your personal credit cards and such. And the piece that I always leave off here, but the most important piece of leverage, to me at least, is other people's money. Do you understand how, again, it's less about the how much money you personally have, it's understanding where the opportunities and understanding the people around you and how to leverage those around you to be able to put that money to work. I love, I think when we were headed down the path of whether or not real estate was going to be an opportunity for us, I was spending a lot of time with wholesalers. And I think they are some of the most talented individuals I've seen because they make something out of nothing. They will make a spread out of anything. And I think that's one of the talents that they have is how to leverage other people's money to be able to accomplish a goal. And yeah, the spreads that they receive may be small, but those spreads compound. You do it enough times, you can actually build a pretty solid career just by simply wholesaling properties or businesses or assets in general. And so as it relates to Laura, her original goal looked one way. She was originally focused on, hey, how can I eliminate this $284,000 mortgage so I can become debt free so that I can move on into retirement? That was the original goal. But our objective was to kind of show her, hey, there may be another option to put your money in a position so that you can create your own little system that feeds itself. And as it feeds itself, it becomes a machine that can produce income for you infinitely if you allow it to. So what does that ultimately mean though? It's using her leverage to maybe purchase other properties, increase her cash flow so that she can put that cash flow in a position to maybe open a secure compound interest account. There was a few examples that we had gone through last week, but what we wanted to do this week is just one, recap what occurred, and take a different approach. Instead of moving down the path initially or immediately around a secure compound interest account, what would it look like if her home bought a home? What would it look like if the home that she had converted to a first position home equity line of credit? Again, it was originally, the mortgage balance was $284,000. She ended up replacing that mortgage balance with a first position home equity line of credit of a first position home equity line of credit of $284,000 is what she ended up doing. And that $284,000 first position home equity line of credit was for about $1,825 a month was that principal and interest payment on the variable interest home equity line of credit with an interest rate of 7.625. That might scare some people. But the beauty around what her situation was, she did have decent cash flow. Income of about $10,000 a month. Her expenses were about half that, which left her about $5,000 in cash flow month to month. So in the first 12 months, just by driving her income, again, velocity banking, just by driving her income through the line of credit, paying bills from the line of credit, and allowing that cash flow to sit on the line of credit, in the first 12 months, she was able to reduce that $284,000 balance down to about $218,000, which left her with room, liquidity of about $65,000. Now, last week, what we did was we put some of this $65,000 to work to build a secure compound interest account. But what would it look like for those of us who may not want to move down that path, maybe can't move down that path? How can you pivot and use this liquidity to do something different? Meaning, it goes along with the question of now what? Okay, you've got this first position home equity line of credit. You've been doing velocity banking, driving your income through it. You've been reducing the balance on that line of credit. And I heard you wanted to eliminate the balance and drive it to zero, but you've got this $65,000 here and we're not getting any younger. She's what, 55? So we're not getting any younger. So what can we do to take this leverage and put it to work? What does that look like? Well, and this is a real world scenario. She's got a buddy who is looking to sell. Her buddy is actually around the same age she is, and that is she's looking to get out of this. This is her rental property. She's looking to get rid of it. She's had this rental property for well over 30 plus years. And I want to say she's probably paid this home off 3 or 4 times. Currently, the value on the home is about $234,000. That's the value on the home, and that's after repairs. So it would take it a little bit to get it to this value of $234,000. The current balance on this mortgage is about $170,000, and she's got about 20 years left. Got a decent interest rate, decent monthly payment, and again, it is being used as a rental property today. She's sick of the 3 T's, right? She's sick of the 3 T's, and she's looking to get out of it. She's looking to move on and do something different. Well, again, what could you do with this liquidity of $65,000 to be able to put yourself in a position to take advantage of an opportunity like this? And this is right now, in the midst of the fact that the market just lost $5 trillion this week. To be in a position, to be in a liquid position, to be able to take advantage of an opportunity like this, how many of us have that ability to do so?
And let's be honest, this person, we know this scenario, and we know that this person was not selling just because they didn't want the 3 T's.
Right.
It was 3 T's and some other
BS.
Yeah, it was absolutely this person was let's just say this person was going through a divorce. This is a very common scenario.
Okay.
So even if they did want to keep it as a rental property, being tied to this person that you were divorcing was just not a vibe, and it was not going to be a successful business model for either one of them. They needed to get rid of this asset so that they could fully depart.
See, and that's my wife dropping the tea.
Listen,
I'm
it's
about to
important.
spread all the tea on here, but okay. But here's what I appreciate about you sharing that, and that is this. There are many of us going through something similar, right?
Right.
Whatever the reason is, I need to get rid of this property.
Right. And then if you know that there's somebody who is going through that, then that helps you better identify who might be a candidate for this. It's not just somebody who, you have a rental property. Are you tired of the tenants, toilets, and trash? Well, give it to me. You know what I mean? Like, let's see if there's an opportunity for me out of it. There's a win-win out of this. Right. And that's what we're about to show you, is that the truth is we found the way for a win-win, and we found this multiple times. So there
absolutely. And so again, after repairs and costs, the profit on this property would be about $38,000. Again, based off the current condition. Again, after repairs, and this property would be worth around $234,000. The current mortgage balance is $170,000. So once all of that is done, this seller would walk away with about $38,000 if we were able to put this into play. Well, how would we put it into play? This is actually pretty easy, and I'll zoom in on the areas where I need to. But again, she's got a first position home equity line of credit, and she's got a room on that first position home equity line of credit of $65,000. So she's got a decent chunk that she has available to her to be able to take this action. And again, in digging into some of the details of the purchase, we've got this property that if she was to put 3% down, she'd have closing costs of somewhere around $20,000. So out of pocket for her would be out of pocket for Laura would be about $27,000 out of that $65,000 that she has available. Again, she'd be purchasing a home that is worth about $234,000. The principal and interest payment on this would be actually the actual principal and interest payment is $1,862, and this would rent for somewhere around $1,900 to $2,100. My perspective on this is this. In essence, this property would pay for itself. So whatever the rent would be, it's basically the rent is just paying the mortgage. That's really all that's happening here. But the good part about it is that her equity from her home is picking up her home. Her leverage inside of the first position home equity line of credit that she's been using Velocity Banking to pay down has created enough room to where it can now pick up another asset. That to me is the powerful piece. And so in picking up this asset, the amount of room inside the line of credit is going to be reduced a little bit. So if she has $65K and she's got about $27K in expenses that she has to pay, that's going to leave her with about $38K, right? So what does that look like? So in essence, once she pays off or pays down or drives this dollar amount to address this $27,000, she would be left in her line of credit with somewhere around $38,000 to be able to do other things, meaning she didn't She didn't put herself in a position where she has no leverage left. She used a portion of her leverage, almost half, to be able to pick up another asset. How powerful is that? And for most of us, we would probably leave this right here. But we don't function that way. If I'm going to pick up a property and I get it, I should be okay with this property paying for itself. Like, in essence, I should be okay with that, but I'm not. Meaning, yeah, I can rent it for $1,862. The principal interest payment on the mortgage is $1,862. There's no expenses for me coming out of this. But why would I leave it there? Are there any other opportunities? Well, of course there are, especially when it comes to having leverage. So again, what's currently
And again, this is just if you're going the traditional route and you do not have any other creative friends like the Siddhams who will show you, put you up on game, which is coming next.
Right. So what are the opportunities you could do with this remaining $38,000? Could you take some of that $38,000, dump it into the home, rehab it, put the home in a better position so that maybe it will appraise for more? Could you do that? Absolutely you could. Could we get a first position home equity line of credit on the new property? Well, I don't know if that's realistic, but could we? We could, but I don't know that one's realistic. But the second position home equity line of credit, I've got a $234,000 mortgage. Again, if I was to take a portion of these dollars to rehab it a bit, would there be some room to be able to get more equity out of that home? Of course there would be.
Yeah, and more rent. You could increase the rent then probably.
Many different actions that we could take. Or could we just take a portion of this and start our skia? That's absolutely what we could do. But we chose to go the recast route. Why? I didn't like the fact that the home was just simply paying for itself. Why pick up a property if I can't take more advantage of what's happening within that property? So the thought process would be, what would it look like if we took a portion of this and just put it to work? Took a portion of it, dumped it into the mortgage. You know how we do with a recast, just kind of recap what a recast would look like. Take a large sum, dump it onto the principal of the mortgage, which in normal cases would take the balance on that mortgage from wherever it is sitting on that amortization schedule. We're in year 20 of the amortization schedule. Dumping a large sum onto the mortgage would drop it down on the amortization schedule. But when we do a recast, what we're saying is, no, I don't want to move down the amortization schedule. I want to stay at that 20-year mark, and I want the mortgage payment to be recalculated. And so if we were to do that, if we were to dump a certain portion onto the mortgage, and specifically $34,000, if we were to dump $34,000 onto this mortgage, what would happen? Well, in dumping $34,000 out of the equity that we already have, dumping $34,000, what would happen? Well, that $34,000 will drop that mortgage payment down to $200,000, and then we would recast. And I can pull up the sheet if you would like, but I love to show my work. If you were to recast $200,000 at the 30-year mark on the amortization schedule, I kept saying 20, but actually we had purchased this property for $234,000, which started the clock over. So
That's right.
The mortgage is absolutely a 30-year mortgage, so my apologies on that. So we would recast based off that 30-year mark. And so in recasting that $200,000 at 30 years would drop that mortgage payment from $1,862 down to $1,591. So in doing so, notice I just picked up some cash flow. So in simply taking a sum, dumping it into the mortgage, recasting that mortgage, my mortgage payment dropped almost $300. So now my cash flow has gone from $54.52, which is the original cash flow from last week. This is the original cash flow based off her income minus the expenses, minus the debts, to include the first position home equity line of credit. But adding that 271, my new cash flow is now $57.23. So in doing so in simply just taking advantage or using the assets that I have available to me, I've got this line of credit that is no longer worth $38.24. The balance on my line of credit is now $44.24. So I spent $34,000 of the room that I had on my first position home equity line of credit. I now have a new balance of $44.24. And now what am I going to do? Because I've got two properties now. I've got two properties and I've got a line of credit that is now close to its limit. What do? Well, we do velocity banking. Like, this isn't new. We do velocity banking like we've always done. And in this case, and I'll zoom again, I know this is maybe a little bit difficult to read, but I've got income of, get rid of that and pull that. I've got income of about $10,822. I'm going to drive that income through my first position home equity line of credit, and then I'm going to pay bills from my first position home equity line of credit. Well, asset-wise, I don't have a mortgage. I only have the rental income of $271. Why? Because the renters in the rental property are paying the mortgage. I'm just taking what's left. And in this case, that what's left is about $271. So that 271 plus the 1082 that I'm currently receiving as income in my normal 40-hour-a-week job, these two dollar amounts, that's my income. And when I pay bills from my line of credit, what's left over? Well, that new income of about $11,093 minus the same debts, same expenses, same debts to include the first position home equity line of credit, my cash flow jumps up from 54.24 to about 57.23. And so as I do velocity banking, this is just month 13, meaning if you remember I think I have it here. Yep, it's right here. So when we originally started, we started with a balance of $284,000 and our normal cash flow is $54.52. So at the end of 12 months, what we're looking at is what happened at the end of that 12-month period. And so at the end of that 12-month period, we are now starting at month 13. And at month 13, that balance on that line of credit has gone from $284,000 down to about $273,853. But what does it look like as we do velocity banking from month 13 through month 24? So again, same line of credit. The balance on that line of credit was not $284 when we started because we had about $44.24 left over when we dumped that $34,000 onto the mortgage of the rental property. So we started with not necessarily at the limit, but we were close. But when we simply do velocity banking over the next 24 months, again, that 57.23 is what's sitting on that line of credit, driving the balance down. So after about 3 months, we've created about $21,000 worth of room. After about 6 months, we've created about $38,000 worth of room. And in a full year, by month 24, in a full year from the time we purchased that rental property, we would have created about $73,000 in liquidity. We are more than cash flow positive at this point. What could we do here? What could we do with this $73,000 at the end of month 2? What actions could be taken with this $73,000? Again, I've got 2 properties now. I've got a first position home equity line of credit on my primary residence. I've got a rental property where the rent is being paid or the mortgage is being paid for by the renters, and there's a spread that's being created. So what could I do with this $73,000? Well, there's a lot of actions we can take, right? But for me, I don't think that's enough. Like, I get it, it's good, but I think there's a better route we could go. So I wanted to introduce a different option. And I wanted to kind of highlight the seller again. And this just happens to be a friend of Laura's. So we know a little bit more than I think in most cases. But here's what I love about this scenario that I'm about to walk through. This is exactly how we purchased the home that we're in. We simply developed a relationship with the people that were wanting to sell, and we just wanted to understand, what is it you're actually looking for?
Yeah.
What is it that you actually need? And that's what's happening here. Meaning, yeah, with the sale of this property, the seller is required to, make some repairs, handle some closing costs, meaning come out of pocket about, was that $25,000? And that $25,000 expense is eating into the profit. So the question being asked is, hey, seller, what is it you're looking for? And what they were looking for was, hey, I'm looking for an opportunity where I don't have to pay, one, they were looking for 50K in profit. Well, that's not 50K. So how can they achieve the cash that they were wanting to get out? Why? Because, and sweetheart, you kind of laid it out there. Because they're going through a divorce, things are being cut in half, and they were looking to be able to split about 50 grand between the two and go their separate ways. So the first objective was, how can we achieve $50,000? So the question is there a way to rework this opportunity so that we can get the buyer what they're looking for versus going down the traditional path? Because we've all been conditioned to go down the traditional path. But what would it look like if we just simply took a different approach?
Well, hold on.
Okay.
They could get $50,000. Let me see if this will work. Okay, they could get $50,000, but here's the real thing. They would also be having to make decisions together, right? They would be having to go through this whole entire process together and have to stretch this out until it's sold. So that means showing and getting it prepared to be listed, dealing with the same real estate agent, and then that agent having to talk to two different people. There's a lot more to just rehabbing and the closing costs, right? Then they risk at some point that they would have to maybe just abandon the whole thing. Like regardless of how much money they just put into the kitchen, they'd have to just say, you know what, just whoever wants to buy it, just get us out. And now they've lost even more money. This happens all the time, all the time. The thing that they were looking for was to be done and to get something out of the point of having this property. It already feels like a loss because part of their plan was to have this property and this income, right? Now they're losing that, both of them.
Right.
Yeah, both of them are losing on when it comes to this. So I think where's the win-win? That they get peace, they get to walk away, and that they have something that they can then both go and invest with from this. They're not guaranteed that, even if they were to make all of those repairs.
Right.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
So to your point, what would it look like to be able to get the dollar amount that I wanted to get out of this thing, but also I don't want to have to make any repairs. I got enough going on. I got enough that I'm dealing with. I need to get rid of this property. And so if I didn't have to make repairs and we didn't have to involve any realtors, what would that look like? And again, what this hits home for me specifically because this is exactly how we purchased the home that we have. It was trying to find the win-win. And it's much easier to be able to find a win-win when you're liquid. It's much easier to be able to find a win-win when you don't necessarily have to ask permission from a bank or have to go get qualified for something to be able to take action. You have the liquidity available to be able to take the action that you want. So you can remove some of these institutionalized aspects of this process because you're in a position to be able to make decisions on your own.
One more thing, and my computer is frozen, so I couldn't put us side by side before. Okay. One more thing. Walk them through, though, why she's in a different position than they are. Neither one of them right now can go outside of this property that they own together and go qualify for new homes. This home is also dragging them down in regards to how they look to other lenders, right? Where Laura looks completely different, and why?
So I think you bring up a great point. So because Laura does not have a mortgage, so when it comes to being approved for, I'll call it bank loans, normal bank loans, what's that process? Hey, what is your DTI? What is your credit score? Are you in the right credit-worthy position to be able to qualify? Well, because she has a first position home equity line of credit on her home, from the bank's perspective, she does not have a mortgage. She does not have a primary residence.
Right.
She has what could be considered a large credit card because as of right now, her first position home equity line of credit reports as simply a debt. It doesn't report as a mortgage.
Right.
So it doesn't count against her, number one. Now, we can argue the DTI impact, but in calculating DTI, that's based off the payments per month, not the total amount of the debt. So if you look at the payments per month, which in most cases are a interest-only payment, and she's got great income, she's got great cash flow. I did the math, and if I remember correctly, her DTI was right around 20%. So this first position home equity line of credit is having zero impact on her ability to even qualify to be in a position like this. So again,
it's silly, right?
It's the ability to pivot. In this case, she's the thermostat. She can pivot and adjust as she needs to pivot and adjust based off the environment. So if the seller comes to her and says, hey, $38,000 is great, but man, I am really not looking to have to make repairs. Me and my wife are going through this thing and I just want to get rid of this property so I can get her out of my hair or I can get out of his hair or whatever the conversation would be. Is there a way we can restructure this thing? That's a great conversation to have when you're liquid.
Right.
It's a difficult conversation to have when you have no control over the process.
Right.
So the point in understanding your leverage is putting yourself in a position to where you can have control over this process.
Yeah. All right. What does that look like?
So what does that look like? So, yep, there we go. So the second option then in this case, and again, I'll zoom in where I have to. the second option in this case is, what does it look like to actually assume the loan? So instead of purchasing the property, starting a mortgage over at year 30, instead of doing so, what would it look like if we could use some of this leverage to simply assume the current mortgage? So again, going back through this scenario, I've got a kind of restarting this scenario, rather, she's got a first position home equity line of credit with about $65,000 in liquidity sitting there waiting to go to work. And what we had talked about doing before was taking $27,000 of that and buying a mortgage. But no, we're not going to do that. We're not involving any realtors. There's not going to be any repairs. We will get an inspection done. There will be closing costs, but the closing costs won't be as major because our objective is to simply look at this other property and understand where are the opportunities to be able to assume this loan. So in digging into those details, we're not putting it down a down payment. But yes, there are closing costs associated. I want to say it came out to about $8,800. I just went ahead and made it 10 grand just so that I could account for things that I might have been missing through this process.
Yeah, the inspection, those types of things. Yeah.
Just some things that I know that I'm not paying attention to. So I just wanted to account for those things. The mortgage balance. So now we're buying a home not for $234,000. We're now buying a home based off the current mortgage balance of $170,000. So what does that mean for Laura though? That means she's now walking into a property with equity. So we're assuming the mortgage of $170,000. The mortgage payment that they're currently paying is $1,205. So we're assuming the same mortgage payment. How and why? Because we're assuming the same interest rate. And this is actually incorrect though. So it's not 30 years. It's actually 20 years is where we're sitting on the current mortgage. So we've got still have the same 20 years left on this mortgage, but now we're going to assume it. We're going to pick it up. And the beauty about that is now that the mortgage payment is only $1,205, you got the same renter in it, your cash flow looks a lot different. And how did it impact the seller? Like, what position did we now place the seller in? Well, coming $50,000 out of pocket, and where did that $50,000 come from? I've got 65 grand in liquidity sitting in my home equity line of credit. I take 50,000 of that and I'm going to pay off the seller, get them the dollar amount they need. There's no repairs. There's no closing costs from the seller's perspective. There's nothing out of pocket. And that's not 100% true either. They need to make sure that the property taxes are up to date. So there may be, and I think the current month's mortgage payment has to be paid. So there's some incidentals there, but those are the same incidentals that would have been there regardless. But the bottom line is no repairs, no closing costs, and we were able to get the seller what they need. And so in doing so, out of pocket for me, or for Laura, I guess, out of pocket for Laura would have been, let me get there. Out of pocket for Laura would have been a full 50,000 plus the 10 grand in closing costs. So 50,000 to the seller plus the 10 grand in closing costs. So $60,000 would have come out of pocket for Laura, leaving about $54.24 in liquidity left inside of her line of credit. So we used majority of this line of credit to be able to make this happen. But what did we get in return? Well, in return, our cash flow took a nice bump. It went from that 54.52 up 65.57. Oh, 65. 54.52 up $657, which gives us now a cash flow of about $6,000. So what can we do with this newfound cash flow? Well, we're simply going to do velocity banking. Again, this process is not difficult. It's not complicated. It's not hard. Income of 1082 going through the line of credit. We're going to pay bills from the line of credit. And again, that rental property is bringing us about $657 in cash flow. So when you add these two numbers together, it increases our cash flow to about $6,000. And it's that cash flow that we're going to drive through this line of credit, which is going to continue to drop that balance down, drop it like a rock. And so what does that look like over time? Right there. What does it look like over time? So by, what is that? By 12 months. So in a total of 24 months total from the inception of this process, she would have picked up about $78,000 in liquidity, $78,000 in room on this line of credit to be able to put to work. And as we had discussed before, Her objective was to take this liquidity and hopefully put it in a position so that she could start making money. And this may look a little bit strange because what we talked about last week was, okay, if we take a portion of this line of credit and get it going inside of a secure compound interest account, we wanted to make sure we would keep staying conscious of the compound cycles. Again, 55 years of age. The objective would be to start as quickly as possible. But in this case, we're not starting at 55. We're actually starting at 57. So taking a portion of this $78,000 specifically, $60,000 a month, $60,000 a year. So $60,000 out of this 78, $60,000 a year equates to about $5,000 a month. So the idea is taking $5,000 a month out of this leverage that we're creating in this line of credit and putting it to work. But let's slow that down a little bit. What does it mean if we're taking $5,000 a month out of this $78,000 a year that we're able to accumulate? That means that this line of credit will pay it down all month, then use a dollar amount. Pay it down all month, use a dollar amount, which means, in essence, we will never pay this line of credit off. If we continue down this path, it will just become an accordion. It becomes a tool that we're just using to put our dollars in a better position to make money. And if we choose to be able to pay this line of credit off, we can, because this vehicle also creates cash value. And I know we've kind of gone through this before, so if you want, we can jump over to the calculator, but I would like to just stay here for a minute and just highlight the differences between the two options that we talked through. Meaning, the first option was to purchase the property outright. We'd have a brand new 30-year mortgage. We've got increased cash flow, but that increased cash flow is somewhere around $270 a month. Add it to our normal cash flow, and in doing velocity banking, we would be able to, on average, have liquidity of about $73,000 inside of this line of credit. Well, option two was, well, what if we built a more desired win-win where we partner with the seller to kind of help them accomplish their goal while also putting us in a better position to have more leverage, more liquidity, more ability to be able to take action when we want. And in doing so, our cash flow increased as well. And at the end of 12 months, gave us about $78,000. So which is better, $73,000 versus $78,000? From my perspective, I think they're about the same. But the difference between these two actions gave us, I'll call it, more space, more room, more flexibility from a leverage perspective. Because in this scenario, I'm walking into a property with about $34,000 in liquidity if I needed to access some of that, whereas here I'm starting over.
Well, and at some point you can access it or turn that into a first position, and now you've got two machines running. Yeah.
So these become and discussions, meaning how can we do all of this? And again, just to recap, the thought process was just simply, how do you come here?
It was, how do you use your leverage?
Yep. How do you use your leverage to be able to put your dollars in a position to work for you? And in this case, it was, how do we work with the seller to be able to give them what they need so that we could take advantage of this opportunity as well to increase our cash flow and put us in a position to where we can pay off both of these assets if we needed to, or leverage both of these assets to generate wealth. All right, I think that's it, sweetheart. Let's see if I've missed anything else. Well, and I think that's kind of the moral of the story with everything that we do, as in which option is the right option. I don't know that there's a wrong answer here, because it should be rooted in what's the objective? What's the goal? Meaning, is it based off income? Is it based off legacy? And I don't discredit the impact that carrying debt has. In some cases, maybe the right thing to do is to pay off a mortgage. The piece that I just want to make sure is not lost is, once you pay off that mortgage, paying off the mortgage doesn't put you in a better position to now have more cash flow and or liquidity. You can be debt free and broke at the same time.
Especially if your income and your cash flow are tied to your current career or job. Yeah.
Right. So it's understanding what is the goal, and are the actions you're taking helping you get closer to that goal or moving you further away. And There's no harm in being intentional. What's the number? Like, are you looking for 50K a year in income out of whatever that vehicle is that you're looking to use your leverage towards?
Or 100K.
Right, or 3 million. Like, it's putting an actual number to it so you can be realistic about what are the actions I need to take to be able to do so.
And if you, real quick, if you can't identify what that number is, the best thing that you can do is to Google up inflation calculator and look at what your current expenses are right now, and then do some assessments on what that will look like in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, just so you can get an idea of what's the income that I would need in order to stop my current job. Maybe it's you have an encore career that you would like to transition into, and that's something that could bring some income, but you need the passive income, you need the supplemental income, you need the financial stability and the framework for building and increasing, scaling your income as inflation continues, right? The inflation calculator is an amazing tool. You know, I love playing with that all the time, but it's also shocking to look at those and go, what do I have in place that could cover that type of, if I think that downsizing is the answer, it's not the answer, because you can't downsize enough as inflation eats up those differences as we go.
And that's where there's things that we can and can't control.
Right.
And so if we focus on those things that we can't, we end up, that's how depression starts, right? It's what can you control? And yeah, maybe these actions being taken won't 100% compensate for whatever inflation will or won't be. But at least it will get us part of the way there, meaning it's something better than nothing. It's me being able to take action and have control over my destiny rather than sitting back and allowing life to happen to me. And I think that thermostat versus thermometer I think you threw that in there later today. And I thought that was just an awesome perspective, because you're absolutely right. All we're trying to do is help you identify where your leverage is located so that you can adjust to the environment.
Right.
So that there's things you cannot control this environment. We cannot control what is happening, but what we can do is put ourselves in a position to where we can pivot when that pivot is required.
Ground up, we have some comments that have been kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Just comments gone wild over here. What are they doing? Just popping up wherever they want. Ground up says, buy the house subject to, keep the mortgage in their name. You can structure the agreement where they get 40K at closing and you take the mortgage payments over. What I was explaining to him in case he missed that part was that they did not want to keep the mortgage. And part of it was also that they wanted to be free from that on their credit. But he brings up a good point that there are many ways to tend.
That's the part. These were two options out of an infinite number of options.
Right.
Because you're absolutely correct. This is absolutely a route that you could go down, and this is less, I'll call it, liquid cash required to be able to make this happen as well. So there are so many different, because if I'm you, Ground Up, I'm also wondering, well, if I could do this with this one property, what about the property next door?
Right.
Or the property down, why couldn't I do this 3 or 4 times this same year? So it's making sure that I have full access to as much of my liquidity as possible so that I can do this multiple times.
Right.
So, no, I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I that's what I really appreciate about real estate is there's so many different ways to achieve the goal. There's an endless supply of creative options. Okay, hold on. Sakui has a question too.
Sure.
She says, can't a bank prevent someone new from taking over the mortgage?
So I think here's the piece around that.
It's a great question.
Not every, I'll call it, mortgage company or bank will allow you to assume a loan. So you're absolutely correct. I think in this case, it's a FHA loan. So you are allowed to be able to assume. But the question around that is, can you do a recast with an FHA, right? So there's many different aspects and pieces here that you just kind of have to peel back the layers to understand what you can or cannot do. So no, you're spot on with that. It absolutely is something that a bank, depending on where this institution was that the mortgage is located or who the mortgage is with, can kind of dictate what you can or cannot do. And that's where maybe it's refi to another institution, pay a higher interest rate in the short term, convert that over to a first position home equity line of credit, and get it all, done that way. Like there are many different, again, there are many ways to 10. There are many different actions that can kind of happen out of this.
If I'm a seller today, I would be trying to find a buyer who could qualify to assume my loan simply because it would be worth it for them to buy my 3% or 2% or whatever low percentage I got in on.
Right.
If you've got an attractive interest rate, then why wouldn't you take advantage of this opportunity? Because even in our case, we were willing to pay more upfront to make it even more attractive for this person, just simply because we got to tap into their interest rate.
That's it.
You can't even buy down. You can buy points to lower the interest rate. You can. But by the time you did that, you would be paying it to the bank first and foremost. You would not be paying it to somebody else, another family that could obviously use that, right?
Right. You're not getting much for it in doing so, right?
Right. Yeah. And regardless, you're still out the money. So what difference does it make? It does make a difference, though, if you know that you can improve the terms, if you can improve your cash flow too, or preserve your cash flow by simply having access to an extra $5,000 or $6,000 to buy down some points, right? Whatever
Right.
those perks are that right at the end, they go, oh, hey, this is a snag. And you go, no, it's not a problem because I have access to that. So that's another thing in where I think a lot of people with HELOCs and they're trying to pay them off, or they're so focused on upgrades to their home or things that are not going to give them any kind of ROI or help them build wealth, that just becomes access. This leverage becomes access to upgrading their lifestyle instead of upgrading their net worth.
Just had that conversation, I think it was Friday, and we were talking about a first position home equity line of credit because the main objective was I wanted to fix these floors, is what she kept telling me. Like, hey, my objective is to, and I said, okay, magic wand, poof, the floors are fixed.
Floors are fixed.
Now what?
Yeah.
Like, what did you accomplish other than you you reduced the amount of room that you had on the line of credit? What else did you accomplish? Like, what is your true goal? Like, I get it. You got floors that need to be repaired.
No, when she walks in, she feels a certain way, and that it's how she feels about her home.
Here. It's in here. No,
Yeah.
I'm with you.
I know. I went to school for this. Like, I'm indoctrined in the psychology behind your space and how it impacts you psychologically. These ideologies they're deep. They're deep. We grew up on these magazines, right? What would Martha do? Did y'all get the t-shirts? Have you seen the documentary? Wow. By the way, if you haven't, we could have a whole stream on that. The idea that what you wanted to have this pinnacle, this idea of what it meant to win. At some point, that meant something. It doesn't matter where your bar was, when you were in college, when you were in high school, when you were first starting in your 20s, when you hit your 30s, you had these markers of like what this experience should be for you, right? What do you deserve as an experience? And this is why and how people wake up in their 50s, 60s, and 70s going, okay, now what? I don't have, what happens if I stop working and I got these floors, right? I got all of the matching hangers, got the custom closets. I got all the things that make me feel like I haven't done all this for nothing. Because I think that's what it comes down to is, does it feel like you're working hard for no reason? That doesn't feel good either, right? Right? I don't know if anybody's commenting or if this is resonating with you, but I do think that there is some give and take. However, for me, I'm not going to get into it. Sequia's going to be like, oh, here she goes again about these countertops. It's once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And so every time that I would think of these things, I would have to remind myself, is it worth taking it out of my machine? And I know that where money goes to die now. That changed for me. And when I started to see things that way, I was like, hold on a second. No, it is not worth that. Not at all. In 20 years, when we have to redo the floors, in 20 years, when we have to redo the upgrade to this and upgrade to that, like it better be broken and have to be fixed in order for us to change something at this point, just simply because I can't unsee it now. Now, you would have asked me when we first moved in this house, though, I'm with the lady who called you last week. Like, I can't even look at these floors without just, it's giving me the ick and I don't like it, right? Every time I come in here, I thought I only bought this house because I knew floors are something you can replace. Like, that's an easy thing to do. So I'm going to do that so that I can stop thinking about it because it's driving me nuts. And that's the part, that's the habit. So I can stop thinking about it because I deserve it, because, and then you can't go back in time, no matter how much you can't stop thinking about it when you're 60, 70, 80. And if you don't know how much it is costing people who, one, have to downgrade, they have to downsize in today's market. They don't get to downsize in 1980s market, right? 1990s market. They got to downsize in this market, which is more than what they're walking away from in their current home,
Right.
oftentimes. So it doesn't even make sense to downsize for some of them. So then they have to find other creative solutions like multi-generational housing, right? Or assisted living facilities, or communities that are now being so that you can rent a room or rent a portion of a room, or just a smaller within a facility. This is not going to change. They are now building for this because they know the retirement crisis is going to be so real that people are going to have to be forced to rent smaller or buy smaller spaces that are just for them. If you haven't been paying attention, even in your city, go look and see some of the high rises and centers that are being built and how much they cost. Because some of them, I think one of them was one room with a twin size bed. This lady, assisted living facility, $5,000 a month. One room with a twin size bed and a nightstand. That was it. Wasn't anything else in there. Some vertical blinds.
She's got a window.
Yeah, that's it. But this is inevitable because we just don't have it. We have to start strategizing. We have to start building family banks. We have to start
Understanding where your leverage is.
That's
located
right.
So you can put it to work.
That's right. And it might even be within you, your friend group, your sister from another mister that is the sister you got to pick out for yourself. And you guys link up and say, hey, how are we going to build this so that we can ensure that we're okay? How can we structure this so that we have a good, strong, stable foundation? Otherwise, there is nobody coming to save you.
One thing don't forget, because I run into this a lot as well. We hold our credit worthiness, our credit score in such high regard. And to me, it's a tool as well. To me, your credit should be used no different than leverage of a first position or second position on making line of credit. You
Yeah.
should be using or leveraging your credit to get somewhere, to accomplish something. Just having a 800 credit score sounds great at the bar, I guess, but it's not necessarily putting you in a position to be able to generate wealth. So it's understanding where your leverage is located and how to use it.
Hey, but don't you say it's not this or that, it's this
It's
and
all
that?
of it.
Because credit, man, that will give you access to some things that money can't.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, it can, but it's silly not to have that. Like people who may lose their Social Security if this administration changes things. Some only have Social Security, and that's, man, that part right there. And let's just say, let's just pretend. Let's just pretend. Magic. Let's pretend that Social Security wouldn't be going anywhere. Everybody's going to have it forever. Do you think that the cost of living is going to reflect whatever
Right.
Social Security could provide, especially when we have we have not even seen what the impact of how many boomers, I don't even have the number. Somebody put it in the chat. How many boomers are retiring every single day, every single year and they're going into and now starting to collect it. We have never seen this. This system, by the way, was designed for them. This is their promise that it was going to be there for them. Okay. And so if anybody's hell bent on getting it, they are. And they do not care.
And they probably will.
Yeah. And they do not care if it's left for their kids or their grandkids.
Exactly.
They don't care. But I'm going to tell you right now, if that was us, right? And this was something that we had felt like we had made different decisions because we knew that this thing was going to be there and we paid into it for all of this time. Wouldn't you want it to be there? Would you care that any other generations got it? No, nobody would, because it turns into survival of the fittest, right? We're just out here trying to survive. And that's the difference. When you are, but they're debt free, right? They paid off those mortgages that they bought for, you know, a 6-pack of Sprite and 4 raspberries back in whenever. They paid off those mortgages. If they did or they didn't, doesn't matter. The point is, their terms were so different than our kids' terms. Their terms are different and the landscape is completely different. And so to your point, you got to have credit. You got to have it all. Checking the boxes, and leverage, it better be in every single box that you're checking. And if it means closing out accounts because it just feels good to you, like, is a student loan leverage? No. But did you get the student loan because at the time you used it as leverage?
Right.
Right? Are you leveraging the skill set that you leverage that loan to achieve? If you're not, because you don't like that kind of work, if you're not, and you're not trying to make the most amount of income that you can with that skill, what are you doing? Wake up and go leverage the job, right? And that's the part. I love it when you talk about that, by the way. When you talk about leveraging your job to, instead of thinking of it as do what you love and you'll never work a day.
Get up and go to work
do it
today. I'm struggling, dragging. No, this is actually a form of leverage for you. How can you get the most out of this situation? Take advantage of every opportunity you have. It's perspective, right? It's looking at your income as, no, this is leverage, and we're not going to be working forever. So it's, how can I use this leverage that I have, this decent income that I make today, to be able to make sure that in the future, I won't even have to worry about it. And so there's some concessions that have to be made to be able to do that. But the key is perspective.
She said, you have so much freedom. You don't have to be home to look at the countertops or floors. Thank you. I love that. But unfortunately, we are here, and these countertops and floors are very present every single day. But you know what it does remind me of, though? And so T Strong says they're in the similar position, needing to make home renovations and figuring out the best way to do it. And yeah, I'm in my feelings too, wanting certain things now versus waiting.
Well, okay. So if the objective is to leverage this home more, and we need to be strategic on what actions do we take in this home so that we can have access to more leverage. Like it's not, don't do the improvements, don't make the renovations. It's being strategic about the renovations, meaning which ones are going to bring me more bang for my buck, which ones are going to put us in a position so that we can, again, our home is an accordion. The objective is to use it, and then we pay it down, use it, pay it down, pay it down. So what are the best actions we can take so that we can take advantage of more and more leverage as the home appreciates? Because the housing market today is actually doing pretty well. So we all are, those of us who own our homes are actually in a pretty decent position, I would hope, to be able to leverage it. So maybe some of those actions need to happen so that we can take more advantage of the equity that's presented to us. So I'm not against the floors or the countertops. It's being strategic around how we address that.
Yeah, and to be fair, if I said, oh, I know we're replacing those countertops, I can't look at them another day, babe, he would be like, okay, we're replacing the countertops then. He wouldn't be like, don't give in, right? Because he just wants to stay married. Yeah.
The conditioning.
Yeah, but I think that what's important here is I know I could win an argument towards countertops or floors or making the house more beautiful. I know I could win that argument because when you see it completely done and the whole thing and you go, wow, like that's a nice experience. And all of a sudden we're so in the habit of justifying it, right?
That's the part. We can justify it all.
All of it. Yeah. But T strong, T. Okay. I hope that you're just T now, you're fam, you've been in here. So I hope that what happens for you is once you start to really laser in on your goal,
that's the part.
Once you start to see the pathway to the goal and what's required of you and like the habits that you have to build and the decisions that you have to start making or not making, right? In order for you to reach your goal, and you realize like, is what happens if I put the countertops in there and then we got to move? Or are you planning on refinancing to try to lower the payment then, because now everything got so expensive that now you're like, oh, we could just refinance when should you have to do that? And do you now see from some of the stuff that we've put out here, the videos, live streams, and case studies, refinancing is not the move. If the goal is to pay less in interest so that you could put that money to work, right? That's different than just paying less,
right,
and not utilizing that extra to invest and to grow. If you start to see this is the part. Once I saw it and I could not unsee it, it became those countertops look like financial freedom. Those floors look like financial freedom. That outdated bathroom looks like financial freedom. And people will come over here and they'll be like, why wouldn't you guys just like, I'm sure you have the money to do this and do that. Or they would just never, ever, ever have countertops from 1992 in their house. Like they would not have bought a house and then not remodeled them. Like it's, what's the word? Blasphemous. They would not do it. Simply would not. Are they financially free? Because I'm going to tell you right now, these countertops still work. I can still cut things on them. I can still do everything that they can do with their countertops. These floors, still flooring, can do everything they're doing with their floors, right? Everything still works. It does not work just because it's ugly, to me, anyway. These were the bee's knees, though, back in the day. So maybe by the time they were the on trend. Back in the day, in the 90s, I'm going to tell you right now, 90s are coming back. So maybe we wait long enough. They'll be like, you got the vintage? What? Like, you have a vintage 90s? What? Are you kidding me right now? So maybe it'll come back. Jokes aside, though, what I do remind myself of is, does it look like financial freedom? True financial freedom. Does it look like financial stability? Like, does it? If not, then if I am struggling with my association with it, I'm thinking about what I would prefer it to look like. I have to ask myself first, would I be willing to give up a year or 2 years? Do the math. Would I be willing to give up that amount of time for this thing? The answer always is no, absolutely not. Do not care.
And that's where having clarity around the goal is really the most important piece.
Yeah, and now I'm just in such the habit that I'm.
But it's doing that math. It's, you know what? Yes, I could do this right now in this moment, but what is the impact it's going to have on what the true goal is? Because the true goal may be much larger than whatever this situation is, or this feeling, or this weight, or this debt, or whatever it is that I'm dealing with in the moment.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to, right? Oh, hey, Rob. Oh my gosh. He said, what up, fams? Late, but my beard connects. If you know, you know. If you missed the January, I think it was 29th, 30th, 31st of last year, that's how long that reference goes back to.
I got the shirt.
Self-connected. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we ended up with shirts from that stream. That was so funny. Oh, that's cool. They bought their home as a foreclosure in 2011, and now it's worth 3 times as much. So using some of our leverage. Yes.
That's it.
Absolutely. But what are you using the leverage for? That's
No.
the trap. Yeah, that's a trap. Because if you're thinking about new floors, new countertops, then we know what those price points probably look like for you. And if you watch tonight, could you buy a whole nother house? A whole nother house. Like, the math is mathing, right? And so you look at the floors and you go, new floors or whole other house, like an income stream. Can I present to you an income stream? Yeah. T strong, stay strong, and do the math. That's it. Are you coming back over here?
Sure.
Okay. I think we're I want to say we have
Good questions.
yeah.
Well, and if that's the case, I mean, if we can ride out here if we want as well. I'm okay.
All right.
If there's no other questions, we can
Yeah, I think there's just some really good
cut it down.
some like Jesus was in here giving some backstories on recasting, that the intuition may or may not charge a fee, and what types of loans can be recasted and what types of loans could be assumed.
Yep. And I've kind of been down this path as well. It is absolutely important to do your homework, because maybe you might be able to assume but can't recast. So there are these different pieces, depending on the company that it's with. Is it a bank or is it a mortgage? Is it a lender? Like what specifically, where specifically is this mortgage held? So all of those pieces are important.
Peaky says, I can't put meat and jello on the modern countertops though. And that's
Here we go. I thought we were done.
oh my gosh. So meat and jello, for all those who are new, the meat and jello reference is when we're talking about the history of retirement plans, I like to remind people that these vehicles were created for people who thought that meat and jello went together, made a fancy meal, and they put it in magazines. They dazzled their friends with these fascinating molds of like your meat with vegetables and jello served on a platter.
On a mold.
And this is where the concept of retirement plans came from, right? From these people. So this is why it hasn't changed. And this is why we need new solutions. We need new strategies.
A different perspective.
A different perspective, right.
It's coming from people who thought the American dream looked like a picket fence and, you do your job and you work your 40 hours a week and you get your pension. No,
Right.
life doesn't life like that anymore. So we have to have a different perspective. So these tools have to evolve. And in a lot of cases, the tools have not. But the cool part about it is these strategies have been around since forever.
Right.
Leveraging your home and using a first position or a second position home equity line of credit is not new. Not requiring a mortgage and being able to replace that mortgage with a line of credit is not new. Properly structured cash value life insurance based products and using those products to be able to produce supplemental income is not new. It's just we've been conditioned to think otherwise. And when you still peel back that layer around the meat and jello generation, it's why are these ideas still being pressed upon us? Who benefits from us not understanding that there's a different way of going about things? The people who benefit are the meat and jello generation, so they can continue using us as pawns in this game. And so the objective is to step outside the game and do something different.
Yeah. And they really are.
Absolutely.
They really are just trying to make it through, right? And that's the part. There was a study done. Well, one, we have the 1994 Trinity study that was done. They already knew back then when they came up with the 4% rule, the writing had been on the wall, but they're like, we'll put this thing out so that it sounds like we actually looked into it, right? Somebody's like, oh yeah, we'll look into it. And then that they're not looking into it, right, because it doesn't impact them, right? It's just kind of like the, unless you really want to speak to the manager, then like, this is our policy and procedure, right? The Karening of America. The idea that these systems were going to fail didn't matter as long as they didn't fail for them.
Right.
If we're really paying attention, though, to the history of the concept of retirement was to create this independence from having to depend on each other, your family, your in-laws, right? And like everybody, Uncle Joe, Grandma Josephine, Grandpa Joe, Grandpa Georgina, all in the same bed, right? Because you had to stick together at one point in time, right? This idea was like, I could be free from all of that because I have like a whole pension that's going to take care of stuff, so I don't have to be in these
part, and now I'm going to be taken care of.
Yeah, right. And my family, my spouse, really, right? Be taken care of so we can have this American dream. And that's just not the case anymore, but they're still selling the Kool-Aid. Like they still got extra packets.
Not only are they selling the Kool-Aid, it is heavily being taught in schools.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay. Bia, by the way, she lives here. That's crazy. Well, Wells Fargo rep knew nothing about recasting, so I felt insecure continuing with my inquiry. I'll revisit the conversation and we'll keep pushing for it. Okay, have you not been here for our story on how we got our first position HELOC? Story time. Go ahead and tell them.
So it is not unusual that a traditional banking institution does not understand how products they offer work. For instance, I think the worst thing that you can do is walk into a branch and expect them to do anything other than offer you the list that they have in front of them on what's hot for today. The truth is banks are just Walmart. And so what I ended up having, I ran into the exact same situation. We live in Gilbert, Arizona. I want to say I hit every Gilbert branch of Bank of America, walked into their lobby asking them about first position home equity lines of credit, and they all told me that Bank of America does not offer these products. It wasn't until I went beyond them and had to go to their corporate office to understand Bank of America has been offering first position home equity lines of credit since the inception. It's just that these branches weren't educated on, one, how these products can be used or that they even offered them. Whenever I mentioned the word home equity line of credit, the assumption was I meant second position. And again, so this is not unusual. And in some cases, you have to educate them. But I would say don't let that deter you. Hopefully what you're learning here is you're just walking in Walmart. And what the bank is telling you they offer just happens to be what's on sale this week. This is the list of items that these salesmen have been provided to be able to offer to you. And their job is to get you in these products. And it's okay. They're not the subject matter expert. You are. It's okay that they don't know these things, but and again, I'm one who will take the time to educate, but I also understand that just may mean this is the wrong institution to be able to waste to be wasting your time with, and you move on to the next one. But don't be shocked that you end up having to interview or educate a bank on what it is you're wanting to achieve, and mainly because, and I've kind of dialed back my issue on this subject, mainly because in a lot of cases, it's not their fault. When I was educating, I think it was Desert Financial here in Arizona around the fact that they actually offer first position home equity line of credit as well, because I was helping my mother-in-law get one. What ended up happening was he brought the other salesmen, because that's all they are, the other salesmen in the office to stand around the desk so they could learn how a first position home equity line of credit actually works. And the guy that sold my mother-in-law hers ended up getting one as well. So my point is, and I'm not expecting you to do any of that, but my point is I'm not shocked. Don't be shocked that these banks out here don't understand what they offer, mainly because they're just Walmart.
That part. Well, when you're out here just doing free training for financial institutions, all of you,
Right.
let's throw Nathan in here. He's out here doing the same thing. Here's the part though. Don't you feel so empowered when you can walk into a place and you're having a conversation? You're like, Linda, listen. Okay. Listen, Linda, listen. Recasting is a thing. No, it's really a thing. Welcome to 2025. It's been a thing. Okay. We're going to ask again. We're going to look in your handbooks and we're going to find out if you offer this because I need it. It's the same thing as saying, I need you to go into the back. Go into the back. Okay. I see that it's not on the shelf. If it's not on the shelf, we don't have it. Not true. Can you please go in the back? Because I know that this is something that you have. If you don't have it in stock, then fine. I'll show you on the website where you do. I'll be damned, we do sell that. I've never seen it before. That's literally what this is. But had you not known to keep pushing, had you not known to keep looking, you would have just assumed that we were out here making stuff up. And then you would have given up and been like, well, I don't know that it exists. I can't find anybody who knows what they're talking about. Right. And that's sad. Super sad.
And I think that's the great take, right? It's the when institutions realize that they can't convince us that they are subject matter experts. And when we realize that they are no more than just salespeople, and we are actually the subject matter experts. Matter of fact, they need us more than we need them.
Right.
I think when those tables shift, it's a different energy when you walk in those doors. It's a different energy when you have that conversation. They get smaller. You get taller, they get smaller, and they realize they actually are here to serve. And so
Right.
now, how can I put my best foot forward to be able to offer you the best opportunity possible so that you can do business with us? Thank you, kind sir.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, if you want to find a way for you to add value to this process so you can, feel like you're the expert, then find a way to lower the rate. Find a way to improve the terms based on this product that I'm interested in. Educate yourself and then come back and let's have a discussion about it. But the problem is if it's not profitable enough,
That's it.
if they don't get a commission for it, and we're seeing this right now, especially with people who are, what'd you call them? Finfluencers?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Financial influencers, promoting certain products because they get
A kickback.
they get a benefit for doing so. There's someone who is a velocity banking person who we heard because we get it. Y'all come to us after you've been to other people. We know this. They were telling them to go get an HEA. What?
If you can qualify for an HEA, you can qualify for a line of credit. The process, the expectation, the structure is the same. So why would you dive into something that you can't get multiple uses out of the same dollar versus diving into something that you can? Let your cash flow dictate what you should or shouldn't do, but the product that you should get should be something that works for you, not for someone else.
Okay, but
Yeah, I know where you're going.
yes, it's the why would it even be an option for me? Okay, if you're doing velocity banking and you're focusing on increasing your cash flow so that you can increase your leverage so that you can accelerate things, then why would we be introducing products that would
this even be a question?
Man, why would this be a part of the conversation?
Yes.
And for these people to be then, after they've already paid for all of this advice, paid for somebody to tell you to go into some predatory product because of how they benefit. And by the way, it's illegal for people to recommend things to you if they do not tell you that they benefit from them. That's first and foremost. It is a law now. Yeah. Especially if they're sending you or recommending products, right, to another person, they have to disclose it. And if they're not disclosing it, that's wrong. Not just wrong, but it's illegal. The idea though, isn't that they're doing it on purpose. The idea is somehow they have the perspective, right? They have spun around somehow. This makes sense. Somehow the math they're doing makes sense. The math they're doing says you need access to money, so just trade your home for it. Trade your home, not access the leverage in your home, but go ahead and give somebody else a portion of the rights to your home that you will never be able to buy them back out. Because if you're in the situation right now where you need money and you aren't sticking to a plan, and I can already see that, then what I'm doing is I'm just essentially saying for this, whatever, $20,000, $50,000, go ahead and sell your whole house for this amount because you're never going to buy them out and you're never going to get any equity or money at the end of the deal. They're going to get it all.
Yeah, HEAs are quite scary and quite dangerous. So be careful.
And maybe it's a good option for people who really are completely out of options. But the amount of people that are like, jumping on Instagram, right? And they're like, if you need money out of your house, don't get a HELOC, don't get a this and that. Don't just get an HEA. Like, just call this company. They're going to be doing that. My name's so and so, and I'm saying that you should go and get this from this company. And if you're in those, if you get those ads, look for me in the comments.
Literally.
Yeah.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Because I'm in there trolling hard. I'm like, yeah, you should get this if you want to A, B, and C, right? Yes. Oh, gosh, I love the idea of this and signing my home away to somebody for $5. Like, where do we sign up? Where do we sign up for this? It won't be long until these are taken down, because it's going to take a cycle, right? It's going to take for people to then realize that they can't get out of these before, because payday loans were popular, title loans were popular, and now it'd be like the last thing people would do. But in the beginning, it was just like, wow, I could just bring in my title and you'll give me money. I could just take a loan against my paycheck and you just float that for me. Like, yeah, of course I'll do that. Angelique really likes Linda's and Karen's.
You don't even know. You don't even
He calls me Petty Patty sometimes, but it's really that I know that I would have wanted. It's access to information that made a difference for us.
Right. It's being an advocate.
That's right. And we know that having access to information makes a difference for other people. And when we know that there is a way that you can have, everybody can win.
Right.
There's abundance for everyone here. Why does it have to be that somebody's putting their benefit in front of someone else's downfall? Right. It doesn't need to be like that. That's the point. It doesn't need to be like that. There's enough situations like we just talked about tonight where somebody is in a situation, they need out, they need help, they need to walk away with what they could. Instead of forcing somebody else to go into a situation where they have to buy the house at a higher interest rate, and they know that they wouldn't want to buy in that market, right? They would not want those terms. They get to feel good about doing that for somebody else. It's win-win.
That's the part.
Yeah.
It's the win-win. Understanding where it's located and how. And I think it takes that one side to say, you know what, I am willing to make less, take less, so that we can both be successful in this process, because at the end we all win.
Okay, Darkwing says Chase allows unlimited recast for no fee. At least that's the case for mine. See?
And a lot of times
you didn't even have to pay for that.
But I would bet there's an amount, meaning it has to be at least $10,000. But you're absolutely correct. Most of your major banking institutions offer these things because they want to keep you there as a client. It's the smaller mortgage companies that are just trying to survive and they're nickel and diming you to death that ends up being the ones that do not. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. And so it's just peeling back the layers to understand who offers it and who doesn't.
Oh man. It gives me the same feeling I had when I realized the management company on my old 401k didn't know anything about what they were providing to us.
Most don't.
Yeah, because they don't have to.
They're fiduciaries, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they'll tell you, go call HR. Figure it out. Isn't it in a handbook somewhere? Angelique, relax, woosah. You need to go use some Dawn Power Wash and get back to your happy place. Gosh, why do you know me so well? I love that Dawn Power Wash. That stuff is magic, isn't it though? Oh, Darkwings is in Gilbert too.
Nice.
Why don't we just have a get together? We were talking about that. Like maybe we should just have some local, like a local meetup or something. Okay, well, anyway, that's a really good tip right there. At least Chase knows what they're doing and they're not going to lead you astray.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as Chase knows what they're doing.
Well, they know that they offer.
America knows what
they know that they offer recasts.
That's it. And it's understanding where the opportunities are and being able to take advantage of them. And it's awesome when you can walk into a facility and not have to feel like you have to educate the bank to do so. So that's absolutely amazing. So
it's true, Rob. I aggressively aggravate at holes. It's a great way of putting that. I think I'll use that from now on. Okay. Well, what I hope that you have taken away from today is not just that I get triggered, not that part. What I hope that you have taken away is asking yourself the question, where's my leverage and what could I do with it? Not what's the one thing I can do with it. Let me come up with 5 different ways of utilizing this in the first year. I don't know if Gabo's still on or not, but he was saying that first year is so important and what you can accomplish within a year. When he first came in, he was talking about that. And I was like, oh, you're going to love what he's talking about. To be able to do the math and see what your options are, right?
Right. And I think what's also, I was talking with a lady, I want to say it was yesterday, it may have been Sunday. My message to her was, it's okay to do this in stages. Like maybe the first step is I got my first position or I got my second position home equity line of credit. And then the next step is understanding how it works. Let me just drive one bill through it. Then I'll drive 2, then I'll drive my full income. Like it's building the confidence to see that, you know what, this actually works. And then when you learn that it actually works and you see the balance on that line of credit drop so quickly, then it becomes, now what? Now, how can I put this money to work? Now, how can I take advantage of all of those things that I was referencing? But first you got to learn, first you got to get over because it's almost like you're riding out here alone and you just first have to prove that this actually works. But once you get there, now the world is your oyster, right? Now it's time to put that money to work so that you can get towards the actual goal, which was freedom. I don't care the type of freedom, it's freedom. So anyway.
And stability.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah. All right. Well, you want to just do it from here then? Yeah. Okay. Well, hold on. I wasn't ready. I got to go find the thing and the whole thing. Are you coming or no?
No, we're good.
Okay.
I'll stay here.
All right. We like to end with, if you didn't come from a wealthy family.
You can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
Oh, well, wait, pause.
Rewind.
Yeah. No, that's not the one.
What was that?
That was like the Bobby Brown.
Laser.
Yeah, that was the Bobby Brown thing.
A few moments later.
Okay. We'll not do a sound effect. First, I just want to thank everybody for being here and for spending your time with us. It always matters to us that we're able to share the information that made such a difference in our lives, of course, and in our kids' lives and grandkids and great grandkids. This is generational at this point, and we're so grateful that we were able to have to gain access to this information. We're hoping that we get to hear from you. What are you doing with this information?
Right.
What are you doing with this leverage? Who are you pulling in inside of your community so that it could be the each one teach one, and we can get this information into the hands, into the accounts, into the plans of everyone, so that we can become what we call self-directed. It's taking control. It's having complete control, the ability to pivot, as you were saying earlier, right? But it starts with time. It starts with where you're spending your time, and we're grateful that you're spending your time here with us.
Absolutely.
All right. So we like to end our streams with, if you didn't come from a wealthy family,
you can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
So stay tuned.
Stay protected.
Stay focused.
Stay connected.
I'm Angelique.
And I'm Donnell.
And our goal is to help you
get self-directed.
And to do that, we have a ton of free resources and a new website coming soon. So take advantage of all of that, and we will see you back here, the new time, Tuesdays, 5:30 Pacific Standard Time, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, and all the standard times in between.
Well done. Well done.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you soon.
Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and tell a friend to tell a friend. We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you get
Self-directed.